Ooh, my power just came back.
Hey everyone, welcome
Yeah,
back
that's
to Today
exciting.
in Tech. I'm Julia Beauchamp and I'm here with Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mingus and Macworld Executive Editor Michael Simon. And we've got a very exciting day because, as you might have heard, Mike's power just came back on. So we won't have to deal with Mike coming in and out during the show. We are live on Computer World as well as on Computer World's LinkedIn page as well as on YouTube. So if you have any questions or comments while we are talking, please do let us know in the comments or the live chat if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll get back to you. We'll respond while we are live. So we've got sort of a twofold topic here today. So first, we want to talk a little bit about the 27-inch iMac, which is rumored to get an M1 Pro / M1 Max update in early 2022. Then we also want to talk a little bit about some memory issues with the M1 MacBooks, and Mike has some personal experience there. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about this 27-inch iMac. So and it's funny because a few weeks ago, I want to say one of our viewers said something along the lines of, we were talking about the consumer level iMac that got the M1, and they were saying, what about the 27-inch iMac? So early 2022?
That's the
Yeah, first of all,
expectation, right?
apologies if there's any beeps and buzzes in my background because my power just went back on and now everything is restarting, which is a lot of things. So if you hear any weird noises, that's why. Yeah, they're saying mid. So, all right, the 24-inch came out in April. Spring has been Apple's iMac, like kind of the iMac Pro came out later in the year, but for the most part, it's like a spring update that they've kept to for a while. It's not every year. It's every 2 years maybe. So that would make sense.
I think we briefly lost Mike.
That's all right.
I can keep
April,
going.
On the
Oh,
other
there he
hand,
is.
it's a Pro machine. You can't hear me?
It's all good.
Hello.
Keep going. Keep going. You're doing great.
This is a nightmare. Yeah. So maybe April, which is when the M1 24-inch M1 came out, and also since it's a Pro machine, it could be WWDC, which is a couple of months after that, June. So my guess is around there. First half of 2022, I would mark that down for when Apple's going to switch over the remaining iMac Intel machines, of which there's 3 at the moment, to the M1 Pro, M1 Max machines.
Yeah, I'm psyched about seeing this machine because basically,
Yeah.
for one reason, right now I'm talking to you guys on a 2017 iMac, company iMac, that is starting to show its age. And the iMac Pro, at least from what I've seen described, sounds ideal. I mean, you're talking like, the dark bezels, of course, it's going to look nice. The faster chip, they're talking maybe Face ID in that one, Michael, because it's got enough.
Yeah, there's a
depth.
rumor that Apple's testing it, which I believe that's the first time we've actually heard that.
Yeah.
That they've tried it. So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The MacBook Pro, I believe the notch is a placeholder of sorts for a future model that will have Face ID. iFixit did a teardown, their customary teardown of the MacBook, and the camera module is way smaller than the True Depth Face ID module in the iPhone, so it doesn't quite fit in that yet. And part of that is Apple's stubbornness to make things super thin. So it makes sense that it's not there yet. 24-inch iMac also makes sense because that's more of a consumer level, device. So if they're going to debut it, an iMac makes sense and a Pro model makes sense, just like the iPad Pro has it, the other iPads don't. So I would not be surprised to see that new widescreen camera with True Depth, center stage, and the whole shebang in that 27-inch iMac. So also to talk about the display, for months, we assumed and also heard rumors to back up that assumption that the 27-inch iMac would be becoming a 30-inch iMac because of the smaller bezels and the footprint and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Recent rumors suggest that might not be the case, and that it might actually still be 27 inches as it is now, just with smaller bezels. So the whole machine would be more compact, but the 27-inch display would remain. I mean, it makes sense and it doesn't make sense, because 27 inches is a good size, but 30 inches is a better size.
30 inches would be insane. I would
That's
love
big.
that. Didn't Apple, remember years ago when they came out with that, it was like a 30 or a 32-inch display?
The
that was
Thunderbolt, yeah.
absolutely, it was like the first time you'd seen one of those things that was that big. It was
Yeah.
huge. And that was like
Yeah.
a real leap. And then they kind of, moved away from it. They didn't want to do their own displays, but
Yeah, there's
30
also rumors that they're coming back with one of a standalone monitor,
yeah.
which I know for sure would sell well. Like that's something that's been in demand. I don't know why they stopped making them. They were great. I remember when those studio displays came out when OS 10 was around 2001 ish, 2001 around that time. There was 3 of them, 15, 17, and I think 20, but they were amazing. It was that kind of clear plastic with stripes on them, very subtle stripes. They were fantastic. They look cool. They perform well. They weren't outrageously expensive. And then they moved on to those Thunderbolt displays, and then they just stopped making them. It's been several years. So there are rumors that Apple will come out with one hopefully next year. I think that would be a great move. I don't know why they stopped making them, because it goes with all their Macs, and they're good. They were good anyway.
It also, have you seen the rumors, Michael, speaking of displays in the iMac Pro, that it would have ProMotion?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. ProMotion Mini LED, basically the MacBook Pro in an iMac form. So the M1 Pro, M1 Max chip, LED, Mini LED, ProMotion 120 hertz display, when all that comes with that. So the HDR and the higher brightness and all that stuff, along with the benefits of the Pro. So the 24-inch has the M1. The 27-inch would have the M1 Pro, which is similar to how Apple sells it now. The 21.5-inch, which now they discontinued, but that was the prior low-end model, and that came with I think a Core i3 or Core i5 processor, and then the 27-inch has the Core i7, Core i9, 10th gen, or no, maybe it's 8th gen. I don't even know. But at the time it came out, it was the newest one. I think it's 10th gen. So, hold on.
So we got the 10th gen.
We had a technical difficulty.
I lost everything here.
All right.
Well, we can.
Ken, you can continue.
Yeah.
speaking.
So I was going to
Go
ask
ahead,
you,
Ken.
Ken, what sort of so the 24-inch, right? 24-inch already got the update, and that's the sort of like consumer level iMac. So you guys are, going on about all of these new upgrades that are going to be present in the 27-inch. Is that kind of what's going to define it as like a pro level device? And it's M1 Pro or M1 Max chips are what's predicted to be inside this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, I mean, and to your point, Juliet, too, if I'm a company and I'm looking to outfit a group of creative designers or video team or, just people who need a large screen real estate, there's nothing wrong with the 24-inch iMac, but the 27-inch iMac, I think, would appeal to me. It's going to be more expensive, of course, but with the CPU, GPU, RAM options, that's presumably gorgeous screen, decent camera, center stage, that's going to be a really nice machine for companies looking for Mac desktops. And it's also future-proof for the next 5 years, Michael, would you say?
Yeah, I mean that M1 chip, we tested the MacBook Pro. You have the MacBook Pro. It's significantly faster than the M1, and most likely significantly faster than the M2 as well. Once that comes out, probably the second half of next year. It's a really fast chip. M2 Pro probably won't come out till 2023, maybe middle to end of 2023. So as you say, we're looking at a long stretch for that processor to be top of the line. And some of the benchmarks we've seen there, they're as good as like a Mac Pro. I mean, it's really fast. And that model probably starting at $2,000, like the MacBook Pro, my guess, 2,000, 2,500, maybe 28, something like that for the configurations with the various chips. A great option, and really kind of solidifies that transition. All that would be left at that point is the Mac Mini, the high-end Mac Mini, and that might come out at the same time.
If they ever get
like I said, we've talked about this before. The Mac Pro,
that's going to be the ways.
Yeah, I don't know what Apple does with that, but as far as what's left, you have 3 iMac models and a Mac Mini, and that's it on the non-Mac Pro side. So that year transition looks like it might be done in about a year and a half.
Nice.
Yeah, I want one.
Yeah, well, you want everything, Ken. We know.
I want one of these. What can I say?
Well, if you've got a 2017 iMac right now that you're using,
It's fine. It works just fine. You know,
maybe you're due for an upgrade. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. We'll see. You know, I'll have to ask Santa Claus. But
Just fine doesn't work in Ken's world.
well, latest greatest, baby.
So then let's talk about, your new latest greatest M1 Max MacBook Pro, right? And we were talking a little bit about these memory issues. And Mike, I will link to your article on Macworld in the live chat so people can read a little bit more. But what are the sort of like memory leak issues? And were you experiencing it on your new device, Ken?
Well, let Mike do his explainer, and then I'll
Okay.
come back around and explain. Yeah, but Mike, you're talking about the 13-inch M1, right? MacBook Pro.
Yeah. So it's a funny kind of long-winded story. I wrote about it today at Macworld.com. I've been experiencing issues pretty much since I first got the 13-inch Pro with 16 gigs of RAM. I got it last December. It's a company laptop. And almost like immediately, I would have, regular slowdowns, not like every day, but, once a week. And they would crop up for, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. Sometimes my machine would crash. Sometimes it would slow down to the point where I had to like quit a bunch of things. And I would talk to my IT department. I would talk to the kids, my colleagues, and they're like, "Yeah, it's probably just related to something that is running in the background." We have all sorts of little apps that backups and IT stuff that run in the background, and we just kind of chalked it up to that. It's been an issue for 10 months. I mean, since I got it, I use it every day, obviously, and I looked, I searched, and I didn't really find many people that had those types of issues. So I just assumed it was something that was installed on a laptop before I got it. And since we don't really have access to IT like we used to, because we're all working from home, I just kind of said, I'm just going to deal with it. When the MacBook Pros started reaching people, the new ones, the 16-inch, 14 and 16 new ones, all of a sudden I started seeing reports that were very similar to mine. People saying like, "Whoa, I bought a 64 gigs of memory in my MacBook Pro, and Control Center is using 30 of it, or Safari is using 15 of it, or whatever app it was." And I said, "Hey, wait a minute, that's what I've been experiencing forever." So I did some research and I decided to write about it, because now it's not just like, well, you have something going in the background that other people don't have. This is an actual.
What is it?
The M1 chip, maybe even not the M1 chip, but from what I see, it's the M1, and it's related to, in this instance, Monterey, because that's the new MacBook Pro. But I'm on Big Sur, and it's been going on for a while. And as I was writing the story, it continued to happen. So I have a bunch of screenshots and stuff to show the error messages I get, the forced quitting of apps that I have to do, and the ridiculous amounts of memory that websites and apps are using, that at times during the week slowed down my machine. I'd like to think that Apple is paying attention to all this stuff and is going to address it in some way, because it seems though that it's a software. I would assume it's a software issue, because when I quit the offending app, immediately goes away. My machine comes back, and everything's fine. And when it works, the M1's fantastic. The battery life's great. The speeds are great. All that stuff. But there are these issues, and seemingly related to the way the system on chip is handling, the memory of the machine.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, and I sort of, made the point, when you're on the cutting edge, which some of this technology is, the system on chip stuff, sometimes you get some cuts. I had the 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro, my own, so it didn't have a lot of, perhaps stuff from work installed on it. Not saying that's necessarily the case. I didn't have any problems. I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, and it's certainly not everybody. So,
No.
yeah,
It definitely.
that makes
But
sense. Yeah.
But what's interesting is in terms of the new ones, because I do have the new 16-inch M1 Max, and I saw the same reports you did, Michael, about people seeing these memory leaks. And I did a quick check with Activity Monitor, and it showed that the little control center was using 30 gigs
Yeah.
out of the 32 that I had. I mean, now I hadn't noticed any real slowdowns in what I was doing, on the screen in front of me, but I usually only have like 3 or 4 apps open at once. And it
Yeah,
might have been that I
and
just caught it in time. Once I quit the process, it seemed to have gone away, but it was
for
there.
sure. And for work, I usually have, Slack and Word and Safari and I have like 8 or so apps open, which is, as you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, in my personal use, I might not push it as much, or I might not notice it as much, but at work, I absolutely do, particularly if I'm on like a Zoom call or something, and things like slow down to a crawl, sometimes to the point where they crash. So yeah, that's exactly it. Where a particular app will use, sometimes it's using more than I even have. Like
Yeah,
because that's what
which I don't
that
quite
swap
get. I
memory
mean, I
stuff,
understand
virtual.
swapping, but it was like, yeah, I could see how it was like numbers people
Yeah.
were reporting didn't make sense.
Yes, I mean some of it I don't. I mean, I'm not technically understanding of all those issues, but I do know with swap memory, virtual memory, like the apps can use more than the actual system physically has.
Mhm.
But so some of it might be a reporting issue, but it's clear that there's at least on my machine, that there's something going on. Because when I keep Control Center open all the time now, because I need to keep an eye on that stuff. And when I see it, I'll quit the app, the thing goes away and the machine comes back. So it's clear that these memory issues are like apps are using resources to the point where other apps don't have them to run properly.
Gotcha.
Now, that said, I wouldn't discourage anyone from buying an M1 Mac because of it.
Oh, God,
Because
no. It's a great machine.
I mean,
No.
yeah, it's when otherwise it's a great machine. And if you're using it for personal use, I would recommend going to the Apple store and fixing it. Maybe getting another one, whatever it is. Like I said, it's a specific case because it's a company machine, and I'm not in an office anymore, and it's just difficult. So I just dealt with it, and I was able to deal with it. I was able to get things done every day. I mean, I work. I'm not sitting at home saying, well, I can't do work today because my machine's not working. It's not debilitating to the point where I can't get work done, but it is a common issue on my machine. And now I'm seeing it more and more and more on people with other machines. So I think that it'll require an update in Mac OS for Apple to fix it.
I just want to throw one more thing out there too, as we're talking about cutting edge technology. We were talking about this earlier. Apple has this new feature, this private relay that basically is designed to mask your presence on the internet. It's in beta, so it's not
iCloud Plus. So you have to pay for an iCloud storage plan,
correct,
to get it.
Correct. But there are times, so and I did, and so I've been trying that out. And it's interesting because there are times I'll be surfing and suddenly I can't access anything by Safari. I'm still getting messages, I'm still getting email, Outlook email. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? This happened yesterday, I think. And there was an outage basically.
Yeah.
And
I got a notification about it that said private relay has been disabled and then it came back like an hour later.
Yeah. So just again, cautionary tale, when you're using latest and greatest, both software and hardware, these things do occasionally crop up, even for Apple. And, again, and no slam against the technology, but it's, Wild West in some ways. We're just learning how to do this stuff. Apple's learning how to do this stuff. And I'm sure they will nail down the memory leak. And I'm sure private relay, by the time it's released, full scale, will be solid. But, sometimes these things do crop up.
Sure. And, there's a feature in iOS 15 and macOS Monterey, universal control, that hasn't even been released yet. We saw a demo at WWDC, and it was probably the best feature.
That's where you can basically use a pointer, a mouse,
an iPad, and the Mac back side by side. That hasn't even been in the beta yet because they're still working at the kinks or whatever it is. So yeah, as you say, the speed of this stuff, we take it for granted. But even from the M1 to the M1 Pro is remarkable in less than a year to get that technology. I mean, you look at like Intel, Oh, speaking of which, I have a correction for last week. I said Intel was on 7 nanometers. It's actually on 10 nanometers.
Okay.
The Alder Lake processor isn't 7. It's 10. Even though they call it Intel 7 to be tricky.
All
But it's
those
not.
marketing
Anyway.
people.
Yeah. But the speed at which this stuff moves is just remarkable. And yeah, as you move that fast, things break, and particularly at the scale that Apple and Microsoft and these companies move. People were bashing Windows 11 recently too, for problems that the scale is just unfathomable that Apple has to push this stuff out to. So I'm not excusing it, and I wrote the article, and I took them to task for it, but there's also a level of understanding that this stuff is ridiculously cutting edge how fast it moves from year to year.
It's also really complex, and I think that's where people may be missing what's going on, because Apple and Microsoft with Windows, they take technology that is incredibly complex and boil it down to something that seems simple, but it's really not, because you've got so many moving parts under the hood that have to work together. And so one little thing out of line, and you're going to have some issues that crop up in places you might not even expect them. So it's just, cautionary tale. Embrace technology, buy new if you want to, grab Windows 11, or, but be aware that there may be occasional glitches.
Sure. We have one viewer question for you guys about Private Relay. They're seeing lots of conflicting information about whether Private Relay actually slows down anything, and they're asking for advice on using it.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
Either one of us can speak to it, but I haven't seen it slow down anything. I don't have it on my Mac. I have it on my iPhone. But so what it is, it's basically a VPN for Safari, but it's only for browsing. Like, you can't use it to access like Netflix in Europe or something. Well, it would be the opposite, but like BBC in England or something.
Sure.
Like that's not what the kind of VPN is. What it does is it just kind of hides your IP address as you're using Safari. So, trackers and things can't get your information. That's it. It doesn't work in Chrome or any other browser. It doesn't affect your internet activity anywhere else but when you're using Safari. And all it really does is it hides your IP address from people who are looking to get that information. Yeah. I would recommend turning it on if it is beta. So like Ken said, yesterday there was an issue, there was an outage, but I haven't seen it slow down my traffic at all. But then again, I haven't really tested it, A/B testing to see, but I haven't noticed slowdown on at least not on the iPhone, on my iPhone.
Yeah, agreed. Seat of the pants. I haven't noticed any slowdown at all. And I'm online all the time surfing. So if things start to bog down, I usually notice it right away. Again, there may be milliseconds or that I'm missing out on here, but it's not noticeable day to day.
Right.
So one last point on this, back to the memory leak. Thank you guys for answering that. I actually just looked back for everything in my mind we talked about a few weeks ago. This was actually in February. We talked about the SSD health with M1 MacBooks, and that was ultimately resolved, correct?
Correct. Yeah, what it was, so I forget what OS release 11.3. I don't remember.
Okay.
Apple fixed it. They said it was a reporting issue and not a SSD health issue. So quick Reader's Digest. The issue was people who look at this stuff and understand this stuff were seeing SSD, so when you run like reports on your SSD health, it takes what you're reading and writing and estimates how much life of the SSD, the drive. The SSD is solid state storage drive. How much has been used. And what they were seeing is that on the M1 MacBooks, that they were using much higher, like the percentage that had been used in like a month, because it was January, was much higher than it should be. Like in some cases, like 12, 13% already. So SSD should last, 5, 7, 10 years without problem. Mm-hmm. Based on that, it would last like 8 months, so like it was way higher than it should have been. So people, kind of sounded the alarm there. But what Apple said was that it was the way the reporting tool didn't understand the way the system on chip worked with the storage or something like that. And they apparently fixed that, just the way it's reported. So it wasn't that the SSD was actually degrading, just that the reporting of it was showing that it was degrading.
Got it.
That's a great explanation, Michael. You nailed it.
Mm-hmm. So
now we have no reason to believe or not believe that, but
that's the story, and the complaints went away. Now we'll know in a few years, I guess, if SSD starts.
Why won't you stay in my ears?
Yeah, if they're no longer usable. So is the potential fix to these memory leaks just a software update?
I mean, I hope so, because like I said, when I quit apps and when I keep an eye on things, it's fine. Okay. So I would assume it's the way the apps are accessing the memory and keeping it. So what's supposed to happen is an app uses the memory, then when you're done with that app, it lets it go. But that doesn't seem to be happening. It seems to be keeping it and then building until you kill it, and then it lets it all go. And I don't know technically why or if that should be happening, but it definitely seems as though Apple in a Monterey or a Big Sur update, probably both, could at least alleviate it in a way that's no longer an issue.
Got
it. Or no longer a noticeable issue, rather.
I'm certainly very frustrating to.
Yeah, and listen, memory leaks are a thing; they happen. It's just that it seems to be happening with a bit more regularity,
sure.
Particularly with the newer Macs.
All right. Any more thoughts from either of you guys? So to conclude here, potentially new M1 Pro / M1 Max iMac, 27 inches in maybe April, maybe June-ish.
Yeah, early-ish 2022.
Half of 22.
And probably with an M1, rumored to be with an M1 Pro or M1 Max chip, some ports, bigger screen, probably not 30 inches, right? You guys threw around 30 or 32.
I was hoping like 32, because when you look at the 21 to the 24, it's really big.
Absolutely, it is. But
that's like a TV.
But,
it's very big, but it's sitting on your desk, so why not? I have a 30-inch monitor off to the left of me that I use every day. I mean, you want as much as you can get.
Sure.
But it's looking like 27, which is still pretty big.
All right.
It's not like it's going to be tiny.
And some M1 Mac memory leak issues that hopefully will be resolved with a software update. I'm sure if that happens, we'll probably be talking about it. So I appreciate you guys. Yeah. And for any more on either of these topics, you can check out in the description. In the live chat, I've linked some of Mike's articles from Macworld, but after we're live, I'll go back in, add the articles in so you can read those at your leisure. So thank you both so much for calling in and talking. Mike, I'm glad your internet and your power came back and your internet held up.
I gotta go fix everything. I also have this weird light shining on my head now.
It's good.
Bouncing off my desk.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for calling in and talking today. And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you are watching on Computer World's LinkedIn page, you can also head over to our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk, where you can like the video over there, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you're notified every single time we post a new video. If you have any questions or comments either about the 27-inch iMac with an M1 Pro / M1 Max chip that's going to be coming, or about these memory leaks, please do let us know in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.